What's going on, everybody? This is the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Lennon, and this is episode 3 of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. Today is a very special one for me. I am actually interviewing my wife, Sarah Lennon. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So the reason I wanted to get her on the podcast was pretty much talk about her thoughts on diabetes and my diagnosis, and also a little bit about social media, because she is a social media guru. So when I first got diagnosed, what went through your head about the diagnosis of me becoming a type 1 diabetic?
Well, I think that first, I remember you calling me and you telling me you were at this employment health screening, and you were telling me what your blood glucose was and how high it was. And I think obviously the first thing that went through my head was, what did you have to eat that morning? You must have had like a big bowl of cereal or something. So that was the first thought that went through my head. And then for you to go to the store and buy your own glucometer to see what it would be the next day was kind of my biggest concern. And so when you did that and it was still high, I couldn't believe it, I guess. It was just crazy to me. And I think really it wasn't that crazy, but what was crazier to me was that when we found out that your, we're doing this at the end of the day, so my brain's kind of done, but what's it called, when you, it tells you your numbers for 3 months?
Oh, my A1C.
A1C, yeah. When you told me that your A1C was like some crazy number, like in the 400s, I think what went through my head was that I cannot believe that he's not dead. Like, I could not believe that, and I wanted to know how long you had been living with such a high number like that, and we didn't even see it coming. So I think that's kind of what scared me the most and what I thought about the most. And then obviously I'm a very realistic person, so just what were the next steps? What do we need to do to, get this under control? And obviously I'm a kind of a control freak, so my next thing that I wanted to do was to right off the bat get you on a healthy eating plan.
In which we did, so I thank you for that. It was really good. Actually, one of my posts back in the day on Instagram was what I ate for a meal for lunch, made by you. So, but what were your experience with diabetes before me, when I got diagnosed?
Honestly, the only real diabetes experience I had, like when I think of insulin and things like that, is I had a dog. Like my family dog growing up had diabetes, and I just remember my mom every morning going in the refrigerator and rolling the insulin in her hands and then giving my dog a shot. That's like really the only time that I've seen somebody with type 1 diabetes and having to inject themselves with insulin. And then as I became a teacher, I would see kids that would come through that would have, the
sensors,
yeah,
like the
pumps.
pumps.
The sensors and the pods and all that. And so I started to get experience with that too. And then as I taught PE, we would get kids in there too sometimes who were diabetics, type 1 diabetics, and their blood glucose would be all through the roof, and they would have to come into the gym and just walk laps, to get their levels down. So, and then I had that. But really, I mean, coming from a fitness background, a health and fitness background, the main thing that I always learned about was type 2. So I really didn't have any experience with type 1. And then I think what became a big concern for me too is that everybody that found out that, oh, your husband's a type 1 diabetic, how can that be? He's so fit. He works out every day. I mean, look at him. And I was like, yeah, because type 1 diabetes is not something that you can cure or you get from lifestyle. It's not like type 2 where, if you're eating poorly and you're overweight, that you're at a risk for type 2. That's the one that I was most familiar with. But this one was just basically, your pancreas decided to just stop making insulin. So I think that, a big part of this in the last couple of years for me is just kind of debunking that myth that, number one, that type 1 diabetes can be cured by diet and exercise, and that, anyone can get type 1 diabetes. And especially for you, like, there's nobody in your family that has type 1 diabetes that we know of. There's a couple of type 2s. There's several type 2s. But where did this come from? That's kind of my question now. I mean, not really now, but it is what it is. But, where did this come from? And then as we've moved forward, we have our second child. Now my big concern is, if our children are going to get it.
Mm-hmm. And what are so since me having you for 4 years, what have been your struggles with my diabetes?
You want me to be honest?
Well, it's the money.
Well, obviously, I mean, insulin is expensive. I don't think people really understand how much insulin is. And so for those of you that don't know how much insulin costs, tell them how much yours costs.
Well, I'm on a new insurance policy, but from the policy I had, it was my fast-acting insulin would be about $130 for a 3-month supply, and then my long-lasting one would be about $187 for a 3-month supply. But that's not including test strips and needles. So a box of needles would be $10 for me, so I'd get like 3 boxes of them, so that's another $30. And test strips would probably run, I don't know, maybe $40 to $50 a month.
Right.
So,
I mean, my number one concern, obviously, is my number one concern was you, and making sure that you're okay. But I'm very positive in that, and that it's been around for a long time, and people have come a long way, with insulin and things like that. But yeah, the cost is crazy, and it's really not that crazy, when you say it out loud now. When I think about it, it's really not that expensive compared to some people's, medicines that they have to take. But, for us, it was a lot of money. Both you and I mean, I just said it. I was a teacher, and you were, working as a personal trainer part-time and a couple other jobs. So it does all add up, So that obviously was a concern for me after, your well-being. That was my number one thing. And I think a big part of it now for me, too, is that this is going to sound very bitchy, but I don't mean it in this way, but it kind of consumes you. I mean, you talk about it all the time, you post about it all the time, but you have every right to, because when I think about that, I mean, that's all you have to think about all day long, pretty much, is, well, I'm going to eat in a couple hours, and how much insulin do I need to take? And then it's like another meal shortly, or a snack, and you're giving yourself more insulin. And so you have every right to, I guess, be consumed with it, because that's what you're living with all day, every day. It's not just something that's on the back part of your mind. It's literally on the forefront of your mind all day, every day, because if you misdose yourself, if you give yourself too much insulin, you get a low. If you're too high, that's scary too. You're big into working out, so that it has to be at the right level for that. You're around our children, it has to be at the right level so that you're safe with our children. I mean, it's constantly on your brain, I guess, because it has to be. So that's, another thing that I think about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard me say that before.
No, you actually haven't. So, yeah. Well, I appreciate you being honest, and letting me know. It's a struggle. I do have hard times. I do get bummed out when I hit high numbers. It's stressful, especially if you're sick for a little while, or you have weeks of high 300s plus, numbers, and it stresses you out, because even though you take so much insulin, it's not even doing anything. So, it is stressful. But yeah, I did want to get your side of the story.
I mean, I think that it's a learning game. You know, you're still trying to figure it out. You're 4 years into it, and you're still trying to figure it out. I mean, sometimes I get irritated with you because, you know, you'll have 10 pancakes one morning, and you take a crap ton of insulin, and then all of a sudden I need you for something, and you're all of a sudden hitting a low because you took too much insulin because of the pancakes that you probably shouldn't have had. But, you know, that's not your fault. You know, I have to remember that. You know, you're still trying to figure it out. And, you know, what you're very fortunate in is that you are able to literally do the same thing every day and eat the same thing every day, and you are fine with that. And I think that as a type 1 diabetic really benefits you, because you will literally just eat the same thing. I mean, every day. I mean, if these people even knew what you ate every single day, it makes my life easy when I go to the grocery store. I know exactly what to get you every single week. And so that, you know, is important in keeping your blood sugar where it needs to be. And then I've seen you get frustrated too, you know, like we'll go on vacation for a few days and your blood sugar gets high and you get so mad. And, you know, obviously it's because you do the same thing every day. You know, usually you're working out, you're eating the same thing, you're sleeping the same amount of time, and then it gets all thrown off when we go on vacation, and, you know, you get so pissed about it. But, you know, it makes total sense to me. But, you know, you do have that going for you in the sense that some people wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that. I mean, I can't eat the same thing every day.
Yeah, I just figure it's easier, so I know how many units of insulin I take per meal. I mean,
right.
And I mean, maybe I can get bored of it. I mean, but I've eaten the same breakfast for the past like 3.5 years, so I don't think I'm getting bored with it. But yeah, so well, I wanted to move it to a next part.
Okay, I'm talking a lot.
No, which is perfectly fine. So I mean, I do appreciate it, and I think my listeners want to actually hear your side of the story too.
Yeah.
So, of living with me.
Well,
so.
and I mean, and I just want to say too that, like, you know, this has all been an adjustment for you, and that's the most important for you. And now too that we have kids. I mean, you got diagnosed when our firstborn Bennett, he was, you know,
like 4 months old.
Yeah, just a couple months old. But, you know, now for me, the priority is keeping you alive and keeping you here as long as we can, you know. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, you know, we will do.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get nervous about the kids getting it?
I mean, yeah, I do. Especially, I think to see, you know, you're a grown man and you're able, I mean, even some people can't even give themselves regular needles, you know, and you do that every day. You don't have a pump or anything. But I just think having to have a small child, you know, have to deal with that is a lot. That's a lot. You know, it's a lot for anyone, but let alone a child. It's hard. So, yeah, I worry. But I try not to think about it, you know, and there's nothing I can really do about it, except, actually there is something I can do about it. You know, we can get our kids tested, and they can go on immunotherapy to basically keep, you know, the cells intact for as long as possible, which we need to do very soon,
mm-hmm.
especially with Bennett.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Do you worry about our kids?
All the time. I get super nervous. I mean, you know, it's just I just don't want them to deal with. Granted, I got it when I was 34, like a month before my 35th birthday. So, I mean, I see kids, you know, in the emergency room coming in with, you know, numbers all over the place because their hormones are kicking in because they're teenagers and puberty's hitting. And, like, I can't imagine Bennett or Sydney, like, having that happen to them, you know, and coming in with DK. I mean, knock on wood, I've never gotten into DK, and I hope I never do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do worry. I mean, it's always on my mind, just thinking of, like, well, you know, is there a chance that they can get it? You know, I hope not. So.
Well, you know, this may sound ignorant on my part, but I'm kind of hoping that, and this may not even make a difference, genetics wise or you passing it down, but I'm kind of hoping that this was kind of like a freak thing of why you got it, since it like doesn't run in your family or anything, or who knows, something that caused it to come out in just this one instance. But I don't know how realistic that is, but that's kind of how I sometimes think about it.
Yeah, I mean, when the doctor told me there's might be a honeymoon phase of like, me being a diabetic for a couple months and then my pancreas kicks back in, I was praying that I would get it, but he's like, it's super rare for even that to happen.
Yeah.
So
my mom actually mentioned that the other day. She said, I remember when Tom first got diagnosed and he kept thinking that it was going to go away, or he thought it was going to go away, or there was a chance it could go away. And I was like, what? You never thought that. But now that you say that, I guess that's what it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I guess we really need to get our kids tested. We just, I haven't, but that needs to be a priority, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. But anyway, okay, so let's transition to your main job. Your job is a social media influencer. You have a big following on Instagram.
I wouldn't say big.
Well, I mean,
nowadays.
44,000 followers is big. So, and there's a lot of people that have a very small following, me, and want to know. Well, technically, let's just talk about your story of how you started in the whole social media.
Okay. So, back like 6.5 years ago, I started an Etsy shop right after we got married, and I was making these handbags and putting them on Etsy, and I came across this guy who I listened to I think it was a podcast or it was an interview, and he was all about like influencers. And so I ended up actually having a phone call with this guy, or we had some emails, and then we hopped on a phone call one day, and he told me, you need to get your handbags into the hands of bloggers, at the time, bloggers. And so I really didn't know much about blogging at all. So I even just had to like hop on to Instagram myself and hop onto the internet and look for bloggers. I mean, I wasn't reading blogs on the regular or anything like that. I really didn't know much about it, but I kind of just went for it and reached out to a bunch of bloggers, and some of them they're big bloggers. I mean, some of them now too. I'm so lucky that they decided to like do me that favor and for free. I don't know if I should mention some of their names, but I basically just reached out to them and was like, hey, I'm Sarah, here's my shop, I'd love to send you a bag. And they were like, sure, send it to me. So I sent them bags, and they would post them for me, and I got some followers from that. I did a couple giveaways, I think maybe with some of the smaller ones. And then I was like, you know what? I was like, I want to do this. I want to be a blogger, like, and do this for brands. So I basically just my first thought was, okay, well, how am I going to transition a handbag, Instagram and Facebook page into this blogging page? And my first idea was I'd be a fashion blogger, and I would incorporate my handbags into my outfits. So that's how I first started. But after a while, I mean, I maybe did a couple posts with a few bags in my outfits, but that didn't last very long. So all I did really was, I think I got I can't think right now. Not WordPress. What's the other one? No, maybe it was WordPress.
Oh, you did get a WordPress.
Yeah, I started a free WordPress site, started making my own little blog. It was nothing fancy. I made you take my pictures.
And I remember those Sunday afternoons when I wanted to hit the gym, and you were like, can you take a couple pictures of me? And I'm like, okay. So me thinking it was one outfit for a bunch of different poses, but it turned out to be 5 different outfits and 2 hours later because you had to, as a blogger, you told me you had to post Monday through Friday for the different outfits you wore all the time. And so I was, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and I mean, it was hard at first, and I knew that posting consistently Monday through Friday was going to be important, even though really I had nobody reading it at first. And I was buying all my own clothes, nobody was giving them to me. And I even remember you just like taking my pictures with like my little Canon, my pink Canon Sure Shot or whatever it was called. It was nothing special, and now I look back at those pictures, I'm just like, oh my gosh, so embarrassing. And those are out there on the web forever. So that's how I started. And so literally I would team up with other people on Instagram, and we would do giveaways together, or they would give me like a little shout out, and I would do the same for them. And that's just kind of how I started the momentum of getting followers. And then once I got followers, like a decent amount of them, and I started posting more like on all social media channels and everything, I think this small little boutique, I don't even know if it was a boutique really, it was just like this young girl who started selling clothes and jewelry and a couple things. She like reached out to me and asked me if she could send me a couple things, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is like what I've been working so hard for, that nobody was really paying attention. I mean, a couple people here and there, but that's what it was all about. And I was so grateful for her to just send me something. And I remember her sending me like a dress and some jewelry or something. But that's how it started. And I posted that for her. And then I think other brands saw that and they'd start reaching out to me. So yeah, that's how I started.
Yeah, I mean, you have gotten some crazy, not crazy, but like some very expensive like pieces just for you to post on social media.
I tell people all the time, I'm super grateful for every opportunity that I've had. Like, not to sound like, oh, I'm so grateful, thank you. I really am. We've been so fortunate, over the last 6 years with companies that I've worked for and things that we've gotten, opportunities that we've been given. It's been really amazing, and I'm really thankful for that. And I didn't know how long this was going to last for either. Everybody thought too bloggers were going to kind of be a fad and then be gone, and it has really. I mean, nobody's really reading blogs anymore. It's all about social media now. But this is the wave of the future, and I've just kind of been riding the wave as long as I can until basically I'm too old. Brands don't want to work with me anymore.
Yeah. Now, Instagram is your main. I mean, I know you have multiple social media platforms, but you think Instagram's like your main one, you think?
Yeah, these days. Mm-hmm.
So what would you think for a person starting out? Well, mainly she does all my editing for the writing on the post because I can't write for anything. I'm like awful at writing. But so what would you say for a person starting out?
Oh, you're gonna ask me that. I don't know, to be honest with you, and oh man, I would really hate to be, so now we're called influencers, right? So I won't keep saying blogger, but I would really hate to be an influencer starting today, to be completely honest, because things have changed so much, even just in the last year. I mean, things are constantly changing, and so I don't even know anymore, to be honest, like what you're supposed to do, because it's just like, it's all a mystery. I mean, one day I can have, almost 1,000 likes on a post, and then the next one I get 300. So it's almost like out of your control at this point with Instagram. And I will tell you one thing not to do, and this is what, I had a hard time with, was, a couple years ago, people hopped on Instagram, started this account, and bought all these followers and started taking pictures, and all of a sudden they were just surpassing me with followers, but on like a quick daily basis. I mean, you and I know there's a fitness influencer that we both follow, and she's gaining several thousand followers like every day. That's just not happening anymore on Instagram. It's definitely not organic. I mean, that means people are buying followers. So, there'd be brands that wouldn't do their homework and they would just quickly hop on Instagram and see me, whatever, I'd have 40,000 followers, and then they'd see, Lauren over here who has, 75,000 followers, and they would go for her, or they would pay her more because she had more followers, even if they were fake or, bought. So don't buy your followers. That's my biggest thing. And I think one of the easiest ways for someone starting out, I will say this, I know I said I don't really know, but if you're just starting out on Instagram, what you should do is you should do everything yourself. So what I mean by that is buy everything yourself. So if you want to be a fashion blogger, if that's your thing, you're going to have to go out and buy all your outfits. It doesn't just, all the free stuff, all the opportunities, they don't just come along. You have to get out there and create content on the regular and, front all that money yourself. I mean, blogging is very expensive. I mean, even for me, after 6 years, I'm not one of those big bloggers who's bringing, raking in tons and tons of money. I do spend a lot to make a little, So, buy your own stuff. Don't expect opportunities to come, right away. It takes a long time. And then my other piece of advice is to partner up with other people, with bigger followings than you. Partner up with them, take pictures together, do a giveaway together, or, talk about each other on stories. And there's so many things that you can do nowadays too that we didn't have before. You can go live on Instagram and add a person right in there with you and things like that. But really just partner up with other people. And I mean, that's what I've told you too, is just, get out there and find others who want to rep your brand and, partner with them. And that's kind of how it comes. I think it's slower these days. Before, in the past, we could get followers easily, but now it just doesn't happen that way. I think people are being choosy with who they really want to follow now. And Instagram's making it pretty hard too, with your feed and what comes through.
So do you think posting twice a day, or just do the once a day?
I think that if you have good content to post twice a day, then go for it. I'm also a firm believer in, if you don't have a lot of followers, don't kill yourself to get content out, because honestly, nobody's going to see it. I mean, that's why if you go to just somebody's page, anybody, not necessarily an influencer, and they've got 400 followers and they make a post and they get like 10 likes on it. It's not because that picture sucks. It's because, that's how many people really Instagram is showing your picture to. So don't waste, good content to an audience of no one. But so take the time to build the audience first and then really start busting out content. So if you can do 2 posts a day, go for it. But I wouldn't just do 2 posts a day for the sake of doing 2 posts. Honestly, you should just start from the base, build up an audience first, and then start cranking out that content.
What do you think about TikTok?
TikTok. I personally am not a fan of TikTok. But I will say, when I used to be on Facebook and I was not on Instagram, I said the exact same thing about Instagram. And here I am, and Instagram has been the love of my life for the past 6 years. So I think that it's a change, and some people have a hard time with change. And so I guess my other thing too is TikTok is all videos, and I don't do a lot of videos, and I have a hard time putting myself on camera sometimes. So, now you have to kind of think outside the box and come up with videos that you think people want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not just like, oh, hey, this is a makeup tutorial. No one's watching that on TikTok. People are looking for like funny stupid shit on TikTok to watch. You know?
I mean, I post some things and I'm like, oh, this is gonna kill it. I know it, and I get barely any views. I mean, I get a couple comments, and the ones that I think I just post on there, thinking it's like, all right, no one's really gonna take a look at this, and it just explodes for some reason.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like I said, it's a whole new channel, and it's a whole new thing for me and for you. And I mean, honestly, you know, people who are younger than us, a lot younger than us, that's their thing. They love TikTok, so we just have to kind of figure it out, I guess, and go from there. It's apparently the next big thing, so I'm here for it. I'm just gotta figure it out.
Now, do you think you're gonna start a YouTube channel, or?
Yeah, I am. When I get the free time to put together my first YouTube video. I have the video on my phone. I just have to put it together.
Yeah.
That's kind of new territory for me, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to. It's just, now for me, it's just, you know, with 2 kids and everything and working from home, it's finding the time. And I don't really know how you, like, edit YouTube videos and make them all fancy looking, so I gotta sit down and take the time to figure that out too.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so, well, do you have anything else you want to talk about on social media part, or like for like more Instagram stuff, or Twitter, or Facebook stuff?
I mean, I guess some more advice I would give, and like I said, I don't know everything, and especially now it's just constantly changing, but one thing I just remember reading back in the day, and I still think applies today, is that you don't have to be on every channel. You know, a lot of people think like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, so now I have to be on Facebook, I need to be on Pinterest, you know, I need to be on this. You don't have to be on every channel. Pick a channel that is relevant to what you're doing and just go with that. I mean, people don't know this, but I am a contractor. I do consulting. I'm a social media director for a fitness company, and I have brands that approach me all the time that want help with their social media. Like, for instance, I have a friend who's a real estate agent, that's not a very good one. I have a friend who's a mortgage broker, and when he found out that I do social media, he was like, oh, well, can you help me with my Instagram account? Or my Facebook page, I don't remember what it was, but I was like, well, yeah, but what are you going to post? Don't be on Facebook for the sake of being on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Find a channel that is relevant to what you want to do and just do that, And I tried to tell him, like, well, if you want to write blog posts about buying a home or the mortgage process, things that would be valuable to people, and then drive that through, let's say, Facebook, I think that's a great idea. But what are you going to be posting on the regular? I mean, there's only so much you can post as a mortgage broker on Instagram. What are you going to take pictures of? You know what I mean? Instagram is supposed to be for photos originally. So that's my advice too, is just don't feel like you have to be on every single channel, I think another thing too, and I've given this advice in one of my blog posts to new bloggers, is just to be grateful too for every opportunity that comes your way. One thing that I used to do, I don't do so much anymore just because of the time, but I used to handwrite a thank you note, to every brand that would send me something, whether it was just a product exchange or they were paying me, is I would handwrite a thank you note and mail it back to them. And I think that goes a long way.
That goes a very long way.
Mm-hmm.
Very long way. Because the last post I did with Justin Wright, I gave him a free t-shirt to help me, with the brand. And he was all in. I wrote a letter to him, and he was, super, thankful for that. He even wrote it. It says, I got your package, including the letter. And it was he pretty much said the letter was the best thing out of the whole thing.
Yeah, so. I mean, especially these days, and everybody is just busy and emailing only and texting only. A handwritten note goes a long way. And one group of people that I've found that's like really neglected too are PR companies. I mean, I work with a lot of PR companies, and they're basically just running around catering to brands and getting the influencers and booking the influencers and making sure everything is good. And, I feel like they don't get thanked enough too. So I always try to make sure, to send the PR companies that send me, and our family on a beach vacation to really, send them something and thank them for the opportunity. Just because I do think working in PR is a thankless job. And so, I think it's important to thank those people as well. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I thank you very much for being on my podcast.
Anytime.
I know it's a little rough now in the beginning, but hopefully later on we'll do another one, and then it'll be a little bit better for me, for me talking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. It just, it's all about time nowadays. 2 kids, and it's a lot going on. But I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah. So where can people find you at?
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is SewSarahR. It's SEW Sarah SARAHR, my maiden name. SewSarahR. This is where I started when I was making handbags, sewing handbags. Or my blog is www.sewsarahR.com. Same thing with Facebook, facebook.com/SewSarahR. And find me on TikTok, SewSarahR, because I have no followers on there. So I would love it if you followed me on TikTok, and I'll be sure to follow you back as well.
Yes, give her some love on TikTok. And you can find me on Instagram at Type 1 Lifting, and the 1 is actually a number 1. So type the number 1 lifting. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. So, and if you want to check out my story or my website, you'd always go to type1lifting.com. I have an about page and that talks about my diagnosis, and it's actually in the first episode of the podcast as well. So thank you guys for listening, and hope you guys have a great day. And thank you very much, babe.
Yeah,
You're
thanks
the
for
best.
having me. I talked way